So this is Dan of Vagabond Awake. Today we're lucky to have Martin here on the channel as a guest star. He's in Thailand now, and he's going to tell us what it's like getting a Thai retirement visa and how to maintain it and some of the nuances involved in that. And then he's going to talk a little bit also about maybe some of the negativity you read online and how much of that is a little bit of fluff and how much of it is true in that sense. And so, Martin, we're very happy to have you here on the channel. Welcome.
Thank you. I enjoy your channel.
Oh, thanks. Thanks so much. So, Martin, how long have you been in Thailand?
So, I first started coming here in 2015, which isn't that long ago, and I moved here in 2017. So I've been here about four and a half years, and I last went to the US in September 2019, so I came back just before COVID, and so I haven't left since then.
I see. And
I'm married, and we're building a house in Isan.
Oh, cool, cool. That's great. And so is it right you're on a retirement visa there in Thailand?
Yeah, I actually retired 10 years ago.
Okay.
And then I followed a friend out here to Thailand. He had been coming many years, and he eventually retired. And so I came here in 2017 with an OA visa, and there are a couple of different ways to get here. And so also I am here as a retiree, as I'm here year after year. I'm not a slow traveler like you are.
Right.
And so I'm here permanently, and so yeah, so it's from that perspective, and I'm not working.
Okay. So tell us.
No work permit issues here for me.
Okay, great, great. So tell us a little bit about the Thai retirement visa. You know, are there age requirements? Is there a monthly income you have to prove, or an asset, liquid asset amount? Or tell us about it, please.
Yeah. So the issues here is there's getting the visa, and then there is staying here, which would be extending the visa. So if you're going to come here as a retiree, for instance, you need to think about what's going to happen when you do the extension as well. And so there's two major ways that people come here. One is with an OA visa, and the other is called an O visa. The OA visa is the way I came, and it's really the way I've got it set up. It's logistically very simple. There's like nothing I have to think about all year long. I go to the immigration office in Bangkok, and 90 minutes or 2 hours later, I walk out with a stamp in my passport for another year. And so, so everybody's goal is to get to 1 year extensions, and then you just do that year after year. So I started with an OA visa, and you can only buy an OA visa outside of Thailand at a Thai consulate. And there's financial requirements that go with that. There's either a certain amount of money in the bank or a certain income per month. And in addition to that, there's a criminal background check, which wasn't hard to do. There was a medical form that my doctor signed off on. There was an application form, and then a bunch of bank statements. And then you get your OA visa, and it's a 1 year visa, and you can come to Thailand. So, so without going into any more detail there, the other one, which I didn't get, but a friend of mine did, is the O visa. And you can get that outside Thailand in some places, particularly, and it's a little bit different in every place. So people would shop around. I mean, you could get it in London or you could get it in Los Angeles, but people were also shopping around in Laos and Cambodia and places like that. And they were just different requirements. So you just went to the consulate that you wanted to go to given your situation. But the other way to come here, which my friend did, is you show up on a tourist visa, and then inside Thailand, you can apply for it's called a non-immigrant O visa, And whether you get it outside or inside, it's 90 days. So you get it and you've got 90 days. And in that 90-day period, at the end of that 90-day period, you then can apply for a 1-year extension. So the 1-year extension for me after 1 year, or the 1-year extension after somebody who has a non-O after 90 days, it's the same form, and it's the same form, but they know which one you came on. They know you came on O or OA, and I'll tell you later, but it matters. And I don't think you need any financial requirements to get a non-O. So there were financial requirements for the OA when I came, and all that money could be in my US bank accounts. So my Bank of America account, whether it was a lump sum of money for 6 months or my pension income or whatever, it was all American banks, things like that. And I mention that because when you go for the 1-year extension, then it has to be in a Thai bank. And the financial requirements for both visas are the same. And those requirements are either 800,000 baht in a Thai bank in your name only, so that's about $26,000, 26, 27, or 65,000 baht a month income. And it's kind of a weird, strict rule, but it's 65,000 baht every month, and it has to be from a foreign source. So whenever it goes into your bank, it's coded as from foreign or domestic transfer. And so you have to be careful about that. And there's actually a Facebook group all dedicated to doing that right. When I transfer money from America, it shows up as a domestic transfer because it goes through an intermediate bank. And so it's not always straightforward just because you did a wire transfer that it's going to meet the immigration requirements and so on. So so income, and either the income per month or the lump sum, that's your financial requirements. And it's interesting because you do a lot of videos about how cheap it is to live in various countries. And if you're staying here permanently, it doesn't matter how cheaply you can live, you're stuck with 65,000 baht a month.
That you have to prove.
For instance,
yeah. When you renew.
Yeah, and so my friend bought a condo in Pattaya, so he has no rent, and he's one of these guys that does nothing, and so he could easily live on less than 65,000 baht a month. But if he was doing the monthly income method, he would have to bring in 65,000 a month.
And that is how much for the listener in dollars?
Well, I'm going to say like 2,000 because I remember when I was looking at
2,000 roughly. That's close enough.
Well, yeah, it's close enough because
conversion will change on the day they're listening to this anyway, even if you get it perfect right now. So
yeah, and it's kind of U.S. Social Security. I think the maximum is like 26 or 2,800 dollars a month. Mine isn't that high, so it was right at the level. So if you're just depending on your Social Security, you have to worry, and you're close to that 65,000 minimum, and you can't go below it. Exchange rates can mess you up, and things like that. So and it's the same thing with transferring money overseas. There's banking fees and things like this. It's a weird pain in the neck. I don't do it because of that. So in my case, for instance, I put 800,000 baht in a Thai bank, and I just leave it there. I don't touch it.
So you avoid all that.
About
you avoid all that just by keeping the 800.
Avoid that, but what I do that isn't acceptable to a lot of people is, if you think about it, I have $26,000 sitting in a bank doing nothing, getting no interest.
Right.
And it drives people crazy that everybody wants to invest their money. I don't know how much money you can make with $26,000, but in investments, but people don't want to do that.
Right.
And then the second thing people don't like is they're worried about their money in a Thai bank. Like it's going to go there and it's going to disappear, right. Which I don't worry about at all. But I can understand it because I don't put my money in the U.S. stock market after the crash of 2009. Right. So, all my money's in cash. I haven't done anything with my money for 10 years. So it might as well be in a Thai bank. So what I do is logistically simple, but there are people who have reasonable objections to putting that much money in a bank and not getting interest on it.
Right.
So then they go to income method. You can spend that 65,000 baht every month down to zero. So there's no dead money there. You use it to pay your rent and your food, and obviously you're going to live off probably more than 65,000 baht. But as long as you have that minimum, you can spend it. You don't have to worry about my investment loss thing. So there's good reason to do that. But I went with my way because I could afford it, and the other way just seemed like a pain in the neck. 800,000 baht thing is actually 800,000 baht 2 months before you apply for your 1-year extension, and 3 months after, and they do check on that. And then for 7 months out of the year, you can bring it down to 400,000, but then you have to bump it up again for the next year. So, I mean, that may be a nice bit of flexibility for some people if they have something they need to do in the middle of the year. But for me, it just makes sense to just leave it there and leave it alone. So it's very easy for me because I can afford to put the money there and I don't think about it. And every year I go in and I just get my extension without, I never have to worry about that part of it.
Yeah, that sounds easy.
And you can do that with either an OA or an O visa. So these are all the extensions. And this thing with the 800,000 having to be 2 months before and 3 months after, and 400 for the other 7 months. That's actually a change since I came here. It used to just be 800,000 2 months before you apply, and then they made you keep more money in there longer. So there were people, I don't want to say they were abusing the system, but there were people who would take a 2-month loan for 800,000 baht through an agent or somebody or whatever, and they'd put 800,000 in there, and then they take it out as soon as they got their extension, and then they would go. And so for whatever reasons, the Thai government tightened up the requirements, and now there's more money all year long, and it caused financial problems for a number of people at the time who didn't have the money and were just doing this 2-month loan thing. So that was one of the changes that happened in the last 4 years. The other change that happened is they put a health insurance requirement for anyone on an OA visa for retirement, which means me. And I was among the many people surprised that it was retroactive, that anybody who had ever come into Thailand anytime in the past on an OA visa now had this health requirement. So there's 2 ways to approach the health requirement. And one is, so it's 400,000 baht inpatient coverage and 40,000 baht outpatient coverage, which isn't a lot of money really. So some people approach this and get the minimum policy. There are these Thai companies, and there's one company you can go and you just buy the rock bottom cheapest policy that just absolute minimum. And the way I look at it is just think of it as a fee. I mean, as insurance, it's not very comprehensive. It's not going to really solve a real big insurance problem, but it's money you just have to pay to stay in Thailand if you're on an OA visa for retirement.
OA.
The other way is to
O or just OA?
Just OA.
Okay.
So when you're going down this flow chart of O or OA, and you're the extension financial requirements may be the same, but the insurance requirements aren't. And if you're 70 years old, you're going to have tough time getting affordable insurance.
Right.
So now for me, if I wanted to get out of that, I would have to leave Thailand toward the end of my permission to stay, and come back afterwards and start over again. You have to break the chain.
Start with an O.
Yes, but all that made sense before COVID, but now with the borders closed, it's a huge thing to do that.
Yeah.
So when I say mine is easy, the other fact is that I already had Thai insurance before they made that rule. So I had a 10 million policy with a big deductible. And when the rule came in, I was already qualified. So it wasn't any big deal for me. So if you're not buying the rock bottom cheap thing and just looking at it as an extra fee, the other one is to get real insurance. And so I actually have real insurance.
Okay.
And the decision for that came after the first year, because I realized my U.S. insurance wasn't really going to cover me here as a permanent resident.
Right.
So I bought Thai insurance. It worked, and it works for the immigration thing, and it's not a problem there. And the only other aspect of insurance, I haven't heard much about this lately, but I believe you can get foreign insurance, non-Thai insurance, to qualify. There's a form your insurance company has to fill out saying that they meet the Thai requirements. And there are people who do a lot of world travel and have these insurance policies that cover them all over, and they're not Thai policies. And I think you can get those to qualify as well. But I don't know. I hear stories. I remember, if you're like a U.S. military retiree and you have coverage through the veterans people and so on, and it's worldwide, I don't know if it qualifies or whether you can get them to sign this or not. So there may be some people for which this is a problem, but it is different if you have an OA than if you don't have an OA.
Okay.
And then for all of this, that's just retirement. There's marriage. So I'm also happen to be married. I choose to keep it retirement. But if I was doing it with marriage, all the financial requirements are cut in half. So it's $400,000 in the bank or $40,000 baht a month. And that's true with the non-immigrant O. And just to make this more complicated, which I'm trying to say it's easy, if I switch to extension based on marriage, then the insurance requirement no longer applies to me. So it's only OA retirement. Okay. And even me already here, if I decide to switch to marriage, then I would not be required to show my insurance when I got my next extension if I wanted to go that route. And if you get an O, you have the same financial requirements, but there's no insurance requirement. And if you talk about all the people who have negativity and all that kind of stuff, whenever you have this conversation, it's everybody saying, well, eventually, because they did it for the OA, they're going to do it for the O in the future. But that's just the people who see the glass half full. I mean, worry about it when it happens. In the meantime, pick the visa and extension path that works for you now, and you just do what you have to do. It's predicting the future here is not a good bet.
Early on, you mentioned about the OA and how you get it outside, and you mentioned the requirements. Are they the same, the 800,000 baht or the 65,000, or is it different?
I went back and checked the Los Angeles consulate website today, and I think it's the same. I mean, the same numbers. The only thing I haven't remembered is whether or not there's whether you have to have the 800,000, $26,000 in for a period of time, like 6 months or a full year or something. I don't know if you could just put $26,000 in your bank account the month before you apply and have it work.
Oh, I see.
Because I actually brought in, I needed to get this all done in one trip to the consulate. So I brought in my pension letter and I brought in my bank accounts and the 4 different copies that you had to make, and they all had to be notarized and all this kind of stuff. And I have no idea which one they used, and I always had money in the bank, so I don't know if there was a time limit, and I don't see it on the rules on the website today. So yes, it's the same amount of money,
right, but
there may be rules about how long it has to be in your U.S. bank account continuously before you apply. I don't see that. So when you apply for your OA in your country, you will have had to have a certain amount of money in the bank, probably for 6 months at least.
Right.
And so and there's no financial requirement for the, oh, I didn't see one. Not when getting the visa, but it will be, you will have one when you have the extension.
Right.
So that's the catch-20. That could throw some people. They'll say, oh, I don't need any money to get an O, and then you get here and you find out, you know, you have to open a bank account like next week because you have to have it in there for 2 months, and you only have a 90-day stamp, and then you have to actually transfer all this money there. Actually, my whole journey here was perfect until the first week I got here, and my bank was unable to send me the money on a wire transfer. It was very weird. And I literally had to go back to San Francisco for a weekend and unfreeze my accounts and then get it here. It was like getting money here was the first 2 weeks was a nightmare.
Wow.
And I've changed banks since. But you know, if you're here on a 9-0 and you're on a time clock here, then it's a problem. And when my friend came on a 9-0, a tourist visa, there are agents, and they would, you know, if you needed more time, they would load you into a van and bring you on a border run to Cambodia or wherever and bring you back. And so they would help you hold your hand through the process and go through all the various loopholes that get you to where you need to go, which is a 1-year extension.
Right.
But and now, you know, it's, you come in at COVID, I believe they give you 45 days so that you get the 2 weeks in quarantine accounted for. But then you have 30 days and a 30-day extension, and you know, you're kind of on the clock trying to get a bank account. And there's all sorts of stories of people trying to get bank accounts. And my friend, he got here and he had to go to like a dozen banks before they would open one on a tourist entry. Me, I just went first day and I got one. So, you know, it's one of those things.
Sounds like always the always easier. If you get it done, you have a full year really to get them, or 10 months.
Oh yeah,
you have 2 months before.
Tons of times.
Yeah.
I mean, if you actually plan to leave and come back, you can get 2 years out of it, because it has the peculiar feature that every time you come in, you get stamped in for a year. So if you come in if you leave and come back at the end of the first year, you're stamped in for another year, and you don't have to apply for the extension for almost 2 years. I actually got 19 months out of it.
Wow. And which
I got here in February 2017, and then we went to Cambodia, and I didn't even know about this feature. We went to Cambodia, came back, and they apparently stamped me in for November of 2018. So I go in on February 2018, and the immigration guys look at my thing and say, "No, come back in November." And that's when I discovered a Facebook group where all the information you ever want to know about visas is on there, and they explained it to me. And I was totally clueless online resources for this. I just went online and I did a little research to figure out what I needed for documents and all this kind of stuff. But there are good Facebook groups out there that give you good real-time advice about any visa problem you want. Some of the expat sites are, you know what they're like. It's crazy negative people and trolls and all that kind of stuff. This particular group is doesn't allow for ridiculous conversations. It just gives you real answers. And you know, if it's not part of the subject of that website, they say, well, that's not, we can't answer you. It's not, go someplace else. But anyways, there's good information out there. But so be aware that you can do it. Like I said, there's this thing about getting money into Thailand every month. You know about Wise, right?
Sure.
Money transfer.
It used to be TransferWise,
service.
now it's Wise. Yeah, I use it.
Yeah. Now it's Wise. Well, there's a Facebook group totally dedicated for people in Thailand to use Wise to transfer their money monthly in the right bank codes and all that kind of stuff. So it could be kind of intimidating for somebody, but just go to this Facebook group, tell them, look, I'm a newbie, I don't know what I'm doing, and they'll tell you, here's exactly what you have to do, here's exactly what you have to click on the Wise form, and this will satisfy immigration.
That sounds
And
great. That's
so
for the monthly
there are resources
requirement
out there
you're referring to, right? You need the correct
That's for the
coding
monthly requirement, yeah.
for the immigration.
So here's the thing: when you do a monthly requirement, you have to pay. Well, at least you used to have to pay a transfer fee, and it used to be like $35 every time you did it, or
Yeah.
50 for some people.
Yeah, yeah,
And TransferWise was like 12.
yeah.
And so, but at the beginning of this whole change here in Thailand, TransferWise couldn't guarantee that it would show up as an international transfer, and they fixed that. And now this group will help you do it right, because you have no, like I said, they're very strict. You can't like have, let's say you have your Social Security coming in and it shows up on the 1st every month, except one month it shows up on the 31st or something. Now you've got 2 transfers in one month and no transfer the next month. That doesn't work. You can't do that.
Wow.
And so if you're doing it manually or doing something, these people will help you do that. So there's good visa advice resources there, and there's good money transfer advice, for at least for TransferWise, out there as well. And
so Martin, that brings up 2 questions for me, if you remember. Do you remember the name of the Facebook group? Is the first question. The second is, do you know what's the name of the insurance company you're using in Thailand that makes
so the Facebook group for Thai visa advice is called Thai Visa Advice.
Okay.
I mean, it's 3 words, and the second 2 words are lowercase.
Okay.
I don't know the name of the TransferWise Facebook group, but you can get that from them, because they're so sick and tired of people asking this question. They'll say, okay, no, go to this group. For the Thai insurance companies, called TGIA, Thai Government Insurance Association, something like that, and there's 12 or 13 Thai insurance companies on there that all qualify for the insurance. So I'm trying to look at my notes here. So the one of the companies on that website is called LMG, and that's the one with the absolute rock bottom cheapest thing you can do. So if you have insurance you like and you just have to buy this to get the visa, then that's what people go to. One of the other ones there is called Pacific Cross. That's what I have. And I went to another YouTuber who had a really nice video where he was comparing like 3 different insurance companies, and this one came up. So I contacted them. And so so first thing I should say is, one, really helpful agent that I have, but I've never made a claim. So I can't say what I had to make a claim. But I'll also say that I had really good insurance through the University of California system, and this insurance is a little cheaper. What I did is I got a large deductible, so it's probably like $1,500 deductible. I don't know, it's maybe, I'm saying internet unstable. Okay, so it's like a $1,500 deductible, but the reason I do that is because routine care here is so cheap. It's, I had a thing the first year I was here where I went to the emergency room in Chiang Mai, and the emergency room and an MRI and stitches in my eyebrow and drugs and a CD with all my stuff, and it was 8,000 baht. And it was like, if that was in the US, my deductible in the US wouldn't have covered it.
Yeah, right.
So what a lot of people do is, if you're going to get a real insurance policy, you get a large deductible. That brings the cost down, but costs here are so cheap that if you break a hand or a leg or something like that, or spend a night in the hospital, $1,500 would more than cover it. So for both of them, it's 50 years old.
Right.
So it's all called a retirement visa. Everybody calls it, even the people in the immigration office call it a retirement visa, but it's 50 years old.
Great. And so there's a lot of talk online about how Westerners aren't welcome in Thailand anymore. I haven't personally experienced that. I think the Thai people have been the nicest and most inviting people really in the world. I just don't see that anywhere. I'm wondering what your experience or your thoughts are about why some people are saying that online.
There have been a lot of, I think that the changes that happened in the past 4 years, particularly the financial ones, really, and I think a lot of that, actually, I think it's a lot of the financial restrictions that make people think that the Thai government is using that to push them out. So my perspective is from 2015, the first day I got here, but 2017 when I moved here. But there's people who have been 10, 15, 20 years, and from what I hear, there's been a lot of changes since then. And so if you were here in a kind of fast and loose immigration environment, and suddenly they make the financial requirements like real, and you can't pay an agent for a 2-month loan or things like that, then suddenly you feel like you're being pushed out. And so I think there's a category of people who were shocked by the financial requirements being enforced. And so this is a category of laws that were on the books all the time, but now they started enforcing them. And then there was the case of upping the financial requirements specifically. So I think a lot of people felt squeezed that financial aspect of it. Then there's the other thing, and that is there's like 70 immigration offices around the country, and they all interpret the law a little differently. And sometimes you have some people say they have to pay to get what they want done. And so if you come from a Western country and you've got a big strict law and order mindset, that sort of Thai, it's different if you do it in Pattaya than if you do it in Bangkok, than if you do it in Chiang Mai, or some remote province where there's only 10 Westerners or something like that, where they may want you to do it for retirement and not marriage or something like that, because it's too much work to do the marriage one. Those things drive a lot of people nuts, and they think the immigration people are using their power to just make it difficult for people. Never had bad experience with immigration ever. They've all, and in fact, they've helped me do some things at times. And they're not the most smiley people you meet when you go to the office, but other people, once they've had a bad experience, then it just sticks with them. And then there is a whole bunch of people that either from work or for physical disability have difficulty getting to an office. They might have to drive an hour and a half to get someplace. And when they go there and someone says, well, no, you need this letter from your bank, and so now you have to drive all the way back someplace, they feel like they're getting the runaround and so on, because of interpretation or slight changes from year to year, from office to office. And so it just drives people crazy. Me, I love lists. So I make a list of everything I need, and I go early. I can go, in Bangkok, you can go 45 days early. So if I make a mistake, I got all the time in the world to fix it. And I bring more than I need. Everybody's trying to bring exactly what they need. But if you like Bangkok at one point, or still, wants a hand-drawn map of where you live. And so they would ask that, and it would drive people crazy, but it's 2 minutes and a piece of paper. Why get upset over that? But, so now I just show up with a hand-drawn map. One person printed out a Google map, and they said, no, it's got to be hand-drawn. And you just can't let that stuff bother you. You just have to, sabai. It's just relax. It's not going to be exactly the way you would do it. You just have to go, and if it takes 3 hours instead of 2 hours, so what? In Bangkok, you go downstairs and get lunch. It's make a day of it. But some people, they're type A personalities. They just use Western logic instead of Southeastern logic, and it's just a personality quirk. But I don't think Thailand is trying to drive out foreigners. But there's another factor here. Westerners are not the only foreigners here. Tourist category is Chinese. Indians are a big category. And there's probably the most number of foreigners here are from Cambodia and Laos and Myanmar. So the immigration laws apply to them too. And when they give a security, law and order reason behind it, may or may not make sense, but that's the perspective. They're looking at that. And after I came here, there's been bombings here, like before I moved here, but after my first visit here. There was a bombing at the Erewhon Shrine that killed 3 or 4 people or something like that, or 5. That makes the immigration people kind of crazy. And so when they say we're cracking down on something, it's not because it's not so much about, they're just worried about foreigners in general, not us specifically.
Right.
And there was something else that, don't want to forget this. You were going to ask about reporting requirements. Things you have to do is you have to do 90-day reports. So you have to check in with immigration every 90 days. So all us retirees and married people, all that kind of stuff, we have to report in every 90 days. And if you move to a new place, move to a new condo, to a house or whatever, there's a form there that you have to submit as well. Things change, but they change everywhere. You know, I spent 40 years in San Francisco Bay Area. Bay Area changed, and immigration in America changes, obviously. I mean, from Obama to Trump to Biden and so on. So they went from sort of the Wild West to something that's kind of normal, and it's not oppressive. And from what I hear from you and some other travel YouTubers, there are financial requirements in other places too. There are there that are very similar to the rules here.
Well, Martin, thanks for coming on the channel today and sharing your experience in Thailand about the O and the OA visa and some of these other thoughts. It's nice to talk to somebody who's been there so long, 5 years, and to get a more holistic view of what it's like to deal with the immigration there, and that. So let me just finish with one last question. Are you happy?
Oh, I love it here. You know, I was doing 1-year trips back to the U.S. just to visit family and friends, but you know, 3 days of shopping and then I start getting bored. So I would much rather be sitting my COVID days here in Bangkok versus the United States. I just have I'm totally with it here.
Cool. Well, that solves it, because you're halfway around the world and you're enjoying it and you want to stay. So that answers the question, because you're jumping through the hoops that all the other retirees have to jump through, and you have a smile on your face. So thanks so much.
I'm definitely taking the half glass full approach here. And I've been here for 4 or 5 years, but I realize there have been people here for decades who still don't understand Thailand. So I'm a noob. I'm pretty much a newbie, but I gave the information at least as much as I know.
Thanks so much, Martin. It's been great chatting with you.
Okay.
Take care.
See you online. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Hey, if you liked our video, please like, comment, or subscribe. Any of that would help our business. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much.
Click the link in the notes below this video to get a copy of this content. Plus, grab a free copy of my ebook, How I Fired My Boss and Traveled the World for 13 Years. While you're there, check out our catalog of retired cheap reports all over the world and our hobby income course that we just released. Thanks so much.